This week in news surrounding Israel, Bank of Palestine refuses to shut down pay for slay accounts. No surprise there. Stay tuned, friends, for all the details. Well, shalom, everyone. Welcome once again to this week's newscast. I'm Robert Gottselig, your host. And just a few days ago, the Jerusalem Post reported that the Bank of Palestine has refused a request from Israel's finance ministry to close 3,400 accounts reportedly used to distribute payments to released terrorists. Two sources familiar with the matter told the Jerusalem Post on Friday. The revelation emerged during a meeting of the Security Cabinet on Thursday. The accounts are linked to the Palestinian Authority's controversial Pay for Slay program, which provides monthly stipends to Palestinians who are imprisoned for carrying out terrorist attacks, as well as to the families of those terrorists killed during such acts. According to the sources, Israeli authorities had previously submitted an explicit demand to shut down the accounts. In contrast to a similar case several months ago, when the bank agreed to close 1,700 accounts in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, the bank's management this time responded that it was unable to act. The prevailing assessment is that senior Palestinian Authority officials instructed the bank not to comply. You know, if you want to have a state of your own, don't you think that you would want to end these disgusting stipends and end a program that encourages the killing of Jews? And if you want a state of your own, wouldn't you think that you would want to show Israel that you can be trusted? Show them that you want to live in peace? Show them that you would actually add to the stability in the region? Yes, that would make sense if, in fact, you wanted two states living side by side in peace. But that's obviously not what the Palestinians are striving for. No, not at all. And as I've said over and over on this newscast, the Palestinians are not interested in two states, but they're only interested in one. That is Palestine, from the river to the sea. That's why, friends, they've rejected a two-state offer on every occasion and continue to teach their children and reward their own people to kill Jews. I mean, is the world that ignorant not to see that and see through that? Or is the world blinded by their anti-Semitism? I believe it's the latter. Why else would the world continue to push Israel to make peace with people who wish them dead? It makes no sense unless there is a spiritual force driving all this evil. Last week, I talked about that very thing. If you didn't get a chance to watch last week's newscast, I'd encourage you to do so, as it will help you understand why there is this continued hatred towards Israel and the Jewish people. Friends, it's a spiritual battle. God's word makes that clear. It's also clear that those who divide God's covenant land for the sake of peace will one day face judgment. Simply read Joel chapter 3 and Zechariah chapter 12, and there's other portions you could read, but read those two chapters. And look, what the nations are doing by forcing Israel to give away land for peace to a people that will never recognize their right to exist, friends, that has to be the most evil, hateful thing that anyone could do. And for the Palestinians who continue in their demonic hatred for Israel and yet want a state of their own, well, really, they deserve nothing. Because they've done absolutely nothing to correct their evil behavior. And frankly, they should all be ashamed of themselves. As for Israel, well, they're going nowhere. God's word makes that crystal clear. Read Jeremiah chapter 31. I woke up this morning and the sun is still shining in the sky, and therefore God says Israel will never cease from being a nation before him forever, period. So instead of demonizing Israel and the Jewish people, why not see them as God does? As the Apostle Paul writes in Romans 11, verse 12, let me read that for you. Paul says, speaking of Israel, now if their fall is riches for the world and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? Yes, Israel is not perfect. And yes, the nation rejected their Messiah, Yeshua, which one day they will accept him. But God views that as the riches of the world and riches for the Gentiles, because through Israel's fall, salvation came to us. So Paul says in the previous verse, verse 11, salvation came to us Gentiles. And seeing that, God says this about Israel: how much more will their fullness be? And we can see that in all those kingdom passages, that this world's in for a big wake-up, a big shock, because the preeminence one day is going to shift from the Gentiles into the Jewish people. And we can read in all those Old Testament passages of when the kingdom comes, we can read about Israel's fullness. And so why not think on those things? Why not align yourselves with God's prophetic plan for Israel? Yes, Israel's not perfect. We know that. No nation is perfect. But God has a plan for them, and God will judge all those that come against them, and God will continue to judge those that hate Israel. That you can be sure of. And so let's continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And with that, until next time, friends, thanks for joining us on another episode of In News Surrounding Israel.